Welcome to our deep dive into a world that has captured the hearts and minds of millions.
Oh, yeah.
The enduring fascination with Harry Potter. Now
Yeah.
you've sent us a treasure trove of articles and research about the Harry Potter fandom,
Right.
and we are very excited to help unpack it all.
I'm excited.
It's more than just a love for the books. It's about
It really is.
fan influence, corporate clashes, and even J.K. Rowling's role in shaping this whole phenomenon.
You hit all the highlights.
There are so many layers here,
Yeah.
and we're going to explore them all.
We are. It's fascinating because Harry Potter isn't just a popular series. It's like a cultural touchstone that's created a forever fandom.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Twilight. Twilight had its moment.
Yeah.
But the Potterverse keeps drawing in new fans.
Yeah,
While holding on to those who grew up alongside Harry.
that's true.
What is it about this world that makes it so enduring?
That is a great question, and that is what we're going to find out. One article highlighted something that I found really interesting. The Harry Potter generation, folks born between 1980 and 1996,
Yeah.
seem to have this incredibly strong connection to the series.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like they literally grew up with Harry and Ron and Hermione going through their own coming of age alongside the characters.
That's a key point. The books weren't just entertainment. They were companion through those formative years.
Totally.
It's about experiencing first love, dealing with loss,
Wow.
and facing difficult choices, all mirrored in the pages of the books.
Right.
That kind of shared experience
Yeah,
creates a bond that
It-
goes beyond just enjoying a good story.
I completely agree. It makes you wonder if that's part of the reason why this fandom is so different, so much more intense maybe than some others. I mean, I loved Twilight, but I didn't feel the same way about it as I did about Harry Potter.
Right.
And that brings us to the world of online fandom,
Online fandom.
which is a whole other beast.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember those early days with fan-created websites popping up everywhere?
The Wild West of the internet.
It felt like the Wild West of the internet.
It was a time of incredible creativity
Yeah.
and community building, with fans creating their own spaces to connect and share their passion for the series.
Right.
But it also led to some conflicts, especially with Warner Brothers,
Oh,
the company behind the movies. There was a period known as the Potter War,
wow.
which, by the way, was a time when Warner Brothers went after a lot of fan sites, trying to shut them down for using copyrighted material.
Wow. Potter War. It sounds intense. I guess Warner Brothers wanted to keep tight control over their intellectual property, even back then.
They did.
But how did J.K. Rowling feel about all of this? She was still relatively new to fame at that point, right?
Right. Initially, Rowling seemed to embrace fan sites,
Uh-huh.
even going so far as to create a fan site award in 2004.
Really?
But as her fame grew and the franchise expanded, things started to shift.
Yeah.
The launch of Pottermore, her official website, marked a turning point.
Ah, Pottermore. That's a name that sparks strong opinions within the fandom. It's gone through so many iterations, hasn't it?
It has. The initial site was very interactive, allowing fans to delve deeper into the world of Harry Potter, take quizzes, and even get sorted into their Hogwarts houses.
Right.
It was incredibly popular.
I remember spending hours on there, but it seemed like it was hard to maintain, to keep everything updated and fresh.
Yeah.
And then they relaunched it with a heavier focus on news and shopping. That's when a lot of fans started to push back, right?
Exactly. Fans felt like the relaunch was less about engaging with the community and more about pushing merchandise.
Wow.
There was a lot of frustration expressed on social media, with many accusing the site of becoming too commercialized.
It makes you wonder if that's a common struggle for creators and corporations. They want to tap into the enthusiasm of the fans, but only on their terms.
Yeah.
Did any of the research that you read delve into that dynamic?
There was a study that analyzed the evolution of fan sites across various fandoms, and it found a recurring pattern. Corporations see the marketing potential of fandom, but struggle with the inherent unpredictability of fan creativity.
Right.
They want to harness the power of the fandom without relinquishing control.
That makes sense. But where does that leave the fans? Are they just pawns in a corporate game? Or do they have any real agency? And what about all those fan-organized events that have sprung up? We're talking about Potterfests, conventions, even local meetups. Those seem like a whole other world where fans are taking things into their own hands.
That's a great segue into our next point. The rise of these fan-organized events speaks to a desire for a different kind of experience, something more community-driven and less commercially driven than, say, a giant Comic-Con.
All right.
Let's take a closer look at Potterfest specifically. They've exploded in popularity, offering fans a chance to connect with each other, celebrate their shared passion, and geek out in a safe space.
I have seen pictures of these events,
Hmm.
and people go all out. The costumes, the crafts, the sheer energy, it's incredible.
It is.
But I know there have also been some conflicts with Warner Brothers trying to exert their control over these fan-run gatherings. Is that something you came across in your research?
Absolutely. One particularly interesting case study was the Kent, Ohio Potterfest.
Okay.
It started small,
Yeah.
but grew rapidly, attracting over 20,000 attendees in just a few years.
Wow.
This caught the attention of Warner Brothers, and things got a little complicated.
Oh, what happened? Did they try to shut it down?
Not entirely, but they did impose some pretty strict limitations.
Oh,
For example, vendors were prohibited from using certain copyrighted names and imagery,
yeah.
especially for commercial purposes.
Okay.
So you couldn't have a shop called Ollivanders selling wands, or a pub called the Leaky Cauldron serving butterbeer.
So even though it's a fan-organized event, they're still bound by copyright laws.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It highlights the legal complexities surrounding fan creations.
Yeah.
And the challenges of navigating the boundaries between celebration and infringement.
That makes sense. But even with those restrictions, the Kent Potterfest was still a huge success, right? People loved it. It seems like fans are willing to find ways to express their passion, even within those limitations.
They are.
But did any of the articles address the potential downsides of these large-scale events?
Yes. Some of the research touched upon the challenges of managing crowds, ensuring safety, and maintaining the overall quality of the experience. As these events grow larger,
Right.
for example, the Kent Potterfest faced criticism for overcrowding and long lines, which some attendees found frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's understandable. It can feel like trying to get through Diagon Alley during peak season.
Right.
But it seems like the desire for community and shared experience outweighs those logistical challenges for a lot of fans.
That's a good observation. And it's not just happening in the United States. The Harry Potter Festival in Odense, Denmark, known for its more high culture approach, also drew significant crowds and faced similar issues with Warner Brothers regarding copyright restrictions.
So even a festival with ballet performances and symphony concerts isn't immune to corporate oversight. It makes you wonder if any fan celebration can truly be free from those pressures.
It's a complex issue,
Yeah.
and there are no easy answers. Fans invest their time, energy, and passion into these events,
Yeah.
but they also have to navigate a legal landscape that is often tilted in favor of corporations.
Right.
It raises questions about who ultimately benefits from the commercialization of fandom.
And what about the role of J.K. Rowling in all of this? She's this global icon, but how does she navigate her relationship with the fandom, especially as it relates to control and ownership? That seems like a conversation for another day.
Indeed. We've only just begun to scratch the surface of this multifaceted world. There's so much more to explore, from the role of fan fiction to the impact of social activism within the fandom.
Okay, folks, we are going to pause our deep dive here for a moment. When we come back, we'll delve into the fascinating and sometimes contentious relationship between J.K. Rowling and her devoted fan base. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our exploration of the Harry Potter fandom.
It feels like a constant balancing act, wanting to celebrate this world we love while navigating copyright laws and corporate interests. What I find fascinating is that despite these hurdles, fan-run gatherings like Potterfests are exploding in popularity. What's driving that?
One key factor is accessibility. Giant events like Comic-Con can be pricey and overwhelming. Potterfests, often smaller and community-focused, offer that immersive experience without breaking the bank. It's like choosing a cozy weekend in Hogsmeade over a bustling shopping spree in Diagon Alley.
Yeah,
Both magical, but with different vibes.
that makes sense. It's about finding that sweet spot where fans can connect with each other without feeling like they're just being marketed to. You mentioned community, and that seems to be at the heart of these events. What did the research say about why that sense of belonging is so important to fans?
The studies highlighted how Potterfests provide a space for shared passion. That transcends age, background. Even where you fall on the Hogwarts house spectrum, it's about celebrating this world together, geeking out over details, and feeling like you're part of something bigger.
It's like finding your tribe. But instead of sharing a common language, you share a love for butterbeer and Quidditch. And let's not forget the incredible creativity that flows at these events. People pour their hearts into their costumes, crafts, even fan-made games. It's inspiring.
Absolutely. That creative outpouring speaks to the power of fandom to inspire. Not just consumption, but creation. Fans are taking the world Rowling built and adding their own bricks to the castle, so to speak.
But as we saw with the Kent, Ohio Potterfest, that creative energy can bump up against corporate limitations. They drew a massive crowd, over 20,000 people. I'm curious, what were the specific restrictions that Warner Brothers put in place? Did any of the articles offer examples?
Several articles detailed the crackdown. Vendors, for instance, couldn't use names like Diagon Alley or sell merchandise that too closely resembled official products.
Wow.
Imagine wanting to share your handmade wizarding wares, but having to tiptoe around specific words and images.
So you can brew your own potions. But don't label them Felix Felicis unless you've got the official license. It must be frustrating for those who genuinely want to contribute to the fandom's creative spirit.
It's a tricky situation. On one hand, corporations like Warner Brothers have a right to protect their intellectual property.
Right.
On the other hand, fans feel a deep connection to this world and want to express that through their creations. It's like trying to find the balance between honoring the source material and allowing fan expression to flourish.
It's like a never-ending game of Quidditch between corporations and fans, with the snitch representing that elusive sweet spot. But even with those restrictions, the Kent Potterfest was incredibly popular. What's interesting is that one of the articles mentioned the sheer number of attendees actually created a new set of challenges.
Right. The success of these events can be a double-edged sword.
Oh.
Overcrowding, long lines, and even safety concerns became issues as attendance grew. It's understandable that some attendees felt the magic was diminished by the logistical challenges.
It's like the difference between exploring a hidden corner of the Hogwarts library and being stuck in the crowded Great Hall during a feast. It's still Hogwarts, but the experience is different. Did any of the sources offer insights into how organizers are trying to adapt to these growing pains?
One article highlighted how some organizers are exploring ticketing systems, staggered entry times, and even expanding to larger venues to accommodate the growing crowds, while trying to preserve that intimate, community-driven atmosphere. It's an ongoing challenge.
It reminds me of how the Weasleys' tent magically expanded to fit everyone during the Quidditch World Cup. But even with the crowds and legal hurdles, the Kent Potterfest continued, right? Didn't they have to rebrand?
Yes. To avoid further legal trouble, they rebranded as the Wizardly World of Kent.
Wow.
It's a testament to their dedication.
Yeah.
That they found a creative way to keep the spirit of the event alive while respecting those legal boundaries.
It shows how resilient the fandom is. They're not giving up on celebrating this world, even if they have to adjust their approach. And it's not just happening in Ohio. We briefly touched on the Harry Potter Festival in Odense, Denmark. It had to undergo a similar rebranding, becoming Magiske Dage Odense, which translates to Magical Days Odense.
I wonder if these rebrandings dilute the experience for attendees. Some articles debated that very point. Some argued that losing the direct connection to Harry Potter takes away from the magic, while others felt that the spirit of the series transcended specific names and branding.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's up to each individual fan to decide what resonates with them.
That's true. It's like the magic is in the eye of the beholder, or in this case, the fan. It makes me think about the broader question of corporate influence and fan autonomy. Where does one end and the other begin?
It's a question that continues to spark debate within the fandom. We've seen how Warner Brothers is using legal means to assert its control over fan events.
Right.
But is there a way to find a more collaborative approach? One that recognizes the value and power of fan creativity?
It would be amazing to see a world where corporations and fans work together to create a truly magical experience for everyone. But for now, it seems like the battle for control over the Harry Potter universe is ongoing.
Right, and that brings us to another powerful force within the fandom, J.K. Rowling herself. Her influence is undeniable, and her relationship with the fans is complex, to say the least.
It's like she's cast a spell on the world, but the spell has taken on a life of its own, evolving and changing in ways she may not have anticipated. How do we even begin to unpack that dynamic?
That's exactly what we'll dive into next. Join us as we explore the fascinating and often contentious relationship between J.K. Rowling and her devoted fan base.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating world of Harry Potter fandom. Before we paused, we were about to explore J.K. Rowling's relationship with the fans, something that's both captivating and complicated.
It really is. Rowling's journey from struggling author to global icon has been intertwined with the fandom every step of the way. Her celebrity status, her active presence on social media, has created this sense of intimacy and connection with fans. They feel like they can engage with her directly, which is unusual for a creator of her stature.
It's like she's invited us all into her writing room, but then sometimes gets a bit flustered when we want to rearrange the furniture. I read about instances where Rowling has tried to shape the Harry Potter narrative even after the books were published. Did your research touch on any specific examples?
Oh, absolutely. One that comes to mind is her announcement years after the series ended that Albus Dumbledore, the beloved headmaster of Hogwarts, is gay. Many fans embraced this revelation as a positive step toward representation, but it also sparked debate about whether it was an attempt to retroactively add diversity to the series.
It's a prime example of how passionate fans are about these characters and their stories. They've created their own interpretations, their own headcanons, and sometimes those clash with the author's vision.
Exactly. And that's where the term retconning comes in, which basically means revising an established storyline or character detail. Some fans felt like Rowling's announcement about Dumbledore was a retcon, while others saw it as a valid way for her to expand on a character she created.
It's like a tug of war between authorial intent and fan interpretation, and there's no easy answer to who owns the definitive version of the story. I remember another instance that sparked a lot of discussion. Rowling suggesting that Hermione's race was never explicitly stated and that she could be black.
Yes, that sparked another wave of debate within the fandom, with some fans praising the idea of a black Hermione and others feeling like it undermined their personal connection to the character as they had imagined her.
It seems like every time Rowling weighs in on these sorts of details, it sends ripples through the fandom, prompting fans to re-examine their own understanding of the characters and the world.
And that's where the tension between creator and fandom can become most apparent. Fans have invested years, sometimes decades, building their own understanding of the Harry Potter universe. They write fan fiction, create art, and form deep emotional connections based on their own interpretations.
It's like they've built their own version of Hogwarts brick by brick, and then suddenly the architect comes along and suggests moving a wall or changing the color scheme.
And it can be jarring. It raises questions about who has the right to shape these stories and whether fans have any agency in that process. The research I came across highlighted how fan fiction in particular plays a crucial role in this conversation.
That's a great point. We haven't really talked about fan fiction yet, but it's such a huge part of the fandom. From what I've seen, it's incredibly diverse and creative, with fans exploring all sorts of possibilities within the Harry Potter universe.
Exactly. You've got everything from alternate timelines to character studies to completely original stories set within the wizarding world. And some fans even use fan fiction to challenge or subvert elements of the canon they disagree with, like reimagining characters or relationships in ways that resonate more with their own perspectives.
It's like they're taking ownership of the story and shaping it to reflect their own values and beliefs. It's powerful. But does Rowling acknowledge or engage with fan fiction at all?
She's made comments about it in the past, both positive and negative. She's expressed appreciation for the creativity of fans, but also drawn boundaries around what she considers acceptable within the realm of fan creations. It's a delicate balance, and not all fans agree with her stance.
It goes back to that question of ownership, doesn't it? Who gets to decide what stories are told and how? It's clear that fans see themselves as more than just passive consumers of the Harry Potter universe. They're actively engaging with it, shaping it, and making it their own.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most fascinating aspects of this fandom. It's constantly evolving, constantly being reinterpreted and reimagined.
Yeah.
And as the Harry Potter franchise continues to expand through new movies, plays, and potentially even TV shows, we can only expect this conversation to become even more complex.
It's like the magic is never ending. But as we wrap up our deep dive, I'm curious, what were some of the key takeaways that stood out to you from all the research you did?
For me, it's the realization that the Harry Potter fandom is far more than just a group of people who enjoy the books and movies. It's a vibrant community with its own culture, its own creative output, and its own unique way of engaging with the world. It's a powerful example of how fandom can be a force for connection, creativity, and even social change.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it brings us back to you, our listener. We've explored all these different facets of the Harry Potter fandom, but now it's your turn to reflect on what resonates with you. What does it mean to be a fan in a world where ownership, authorship, and interpretation are constantly being negotiated?
We encourage you to keep exploring these questions, to engage with the fandom in whatever way feels meaningful to you, whether it's reading fan fiction, attending conventions, or simply having thoughtful discussions with fellow fans.
We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and provided you with new insights into the magical world of Harry Potter fandom. Thanks for joining us.